Yo, what's up guys? So today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Miya and Kazehana, part 1. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, go check out the author of this fanfic, YagamiNguyen, link is in the description, and also subscribe to my channel, and like this video. So let's get into the video. Sekirei. They were extraterrestrial superpowered humanoids, with a genetic code similar to humans. Their name was taken from that of the Japanese wagtail bird. Long ago, 8 Sekirei spaceships had reached Earth. Each ship contained 108 life forms described as 1 pillar and 107 baby birds. While one had crashed in the sea near Japan, the rest landed in various locations worldwide, and the Sekirei aboard them had given rise to the myths and legends of gods and heroes that have passed down through the history of mankind. In 1999, an island that would later be named Kamakura had emerged suddenly from the sea near Japan, and had been quickly explored by 2 university students, Manaka Hiroto and Takami Sahashi. Together, they had discovered ruins which had been the 8th Sekirei spaceship, the one that had landed in the sea a long time ago, and of course, what they had found there were 108 life forms in suspended animation. Manaka, who had used the high technology discovered on the Sekirei ship to amass the fortune required to found MBI, had taken possession of the island, and had it declared an extraterritoriality, and removed from map, which resulted into several countries starting to have some suspicion about the past events, many of which hadn't been very happy when MBI decided to take the highly advanced technologies for themselves. Combining their forces, those countries launched a huge invasion on Kamakura Island, in hope of discovering its secrets. Their armies had been armed to the teeth with the most advanced military weapons in the world, and their sheer number of foot soldiers alone had surpassed any army in the history of war. However, while lacking the means to defend themselves, the newly founded MBI had expected such thing to happen, and thus bringing the foundation of the First Discipline Squad, a group of 5 Sekirei under the leadership of the 01, who had been the only adult on the ship when Manaka and Takami discovered the ship. The other 4 Sekirei, from 02 to 05, had been adjusted and turned into fully grown adults, using the technology on the ship to fight alongside their leader, to protect their unborn siblings, because, during that time, the newly founded MBI lacked the forces to defend itself from the invaders. I'll start. Access search. Natsu, Sekirei 02, a beautiful bespectacled young woman who had long red hair with side plates, closed her eyes, and activated her power to gain access to MBI's satellite that were monitoring the island from space, analyzing the invaders and their weapons, before telepathically supplying the information, as well as strategies she had managed to gather, and formed to her siblings, who immediately rushed to the strategic locations Natsu had provided them. Helicopters. Sekirei number 03, Kazehana, a voluptuous black-haired woman, started with a smile, as she put a hand on her hips, and turned her head up to look at the helicopters flying above her. Just my kind of guests. With a small smile, she lifted her hand, and pointed her slender finger at the nearby helicopters, causing the wind around them to pick up. Hana Senpyu, flower whirlwind. With that declaration, the wind Sekirei created several cyclones of winds, and pink flower petals that blew away the helicopters in midair, sending them crashing into each other, before dropping to the ground around her in flames. Lowering her hand, she then elegantly raised the other, generating several more tornadoes to wipe out the entire units of flying machines, as well as their pilots. There you go. She smiled, and looked at the destruction she had caused. At the other side of the battlefield, a silver-haired man, who wore a black outfit with a yellow scarf, took out his sheathed katana, and tapped one end of it into the ground, and muttered with a calm tone, "His Satan, smashing point." Sekirei 05, Matsu declared, as he used the power over the earth to cause a small-scale earthquake to occur, tearing apart the ground in front of him, uplifting every single tank in front of him, and causing the soldiers inside to cry out in fear, before abandoning their vehicles to run for their lives. However, before they could get anywhere, a silver-haired woman jumped down from above, and started slaughtering every single one she could reach with her sword, which she wielded with grace and great skills. Those who she hadn't reached yet desperately fired bullets at her with their guns, but the woman simply jumped into the air to dodge them before landing down, and finishing them off with lightning-fast slashes. Weakling. The woman, Karasuba, Sekirei 04 muttered, as she looked at the remaining soldiers, who knew that their lives had been settled. As the Sekirei continued to carve destructions around the island, 01, the leader of the discipline squad, remained in the same position in front of Natsu, sharply looking at the battleships on the ocean in front of them. The queen of Sekirei was the most beautiful woman of the group, with a slender yet shapely figure. She had waist-length purple hair with shorter bangs in a traditional home style. Much like the other women of the squad, she dressed in a form-fitting black uniform with a grey cap that bore the marks of Sekirei on her shoulders. Removing her sword from its scabbard, Miya raised it above her head, holding the handle with both hands, before bringing it down in a strong slash, sending a violent shockwave that traveled all the way from her position to one of the battleships from afar, slicing it in half. With eyes as cold as ice, she swung her sword to the side, sending yet another powerful shockwave that nearly split the water surface toward the second ship with blurring speed, causing it to be split in half before exploding in the process. slashing her sword over and over. It didn't take long for the Sekirei pillar to destroy the entire fleet of battleships, ending the lives of every single human on board. I think that's the last of them, everyone. Natsu announced once the final ship had been sunk. Good work, everyone. She started happily once the other Sekirei had reassembled around her, and Miya, who sheathed her weapon into a scabbard, turned around to look at her sisters and brother. As expected from the 01, Kazehana commented with a smile while running her hand through her hair, looking at the purple-haired swordswoman, who remained silent. Those weaklings better learn their lesson, and never step their filthy feet on this island again. The silver-haired Sekirei said, as she crossed her arms over her chest, and glanced at the dead soldiers she had cut down with her blade. They're rather weak, aren't they? Kazehana asked. Once they lost their weapons, they started running away in fear. Well, from what I have learned throughout their history, no human can be a challenge for us Sekirei. Natsu pointed out, her glasses glinting. Kazehana only shrugged, and Karasuba and Mutsu said nothing in response. Don't you agree, Miyu-chan? Natsu asked, turning to look at their eldest sister, who looked at her for a moment before nodding her head in agreement. The red-haired Sekirei smiled. Well, how about we head back to the base, then I'm hungry. Kazehana suggested, as she raised both hands above her heads and stretched her back, which caused the miniskirt she was wearing to raise and reveal a small portion of her bubble ass, which she didn't appear to care in the slightest. Yes, let's go. Miya nodded her head and walked ahead of them. Thump. However, before they could go anywhere, they were stopped by a sound that caught their attention. Turning their heads to one of the tanks Mutsu had destroyed, they saw a soldier crawling his way out from the door on the turret, holding a gun in one hand and a helmet on his head with the other. Man, I swear this is going to be the last time I cosplay. The man muttered to himself as he looked around. Where are my comrades anyway? He asked, pushing himself to his feet. He then spotted a bloody body on the ground and said after a second of pausing, "Ah, so you are all dead, huh? Karasuba, I think you missed one," Kazehana said amusedly, as she gestured her head to the man who was paying respects to the dead soldiers. Karasuba clicked her tongue in displeasure before rushing to the man, removing the sword from his scabbard, which she threw to the side. "You're dead." Hearing her cry, he snapped his head to the side in terror, and immediately brought his gun up to fire a barrage of bullets at her. However, by swiftly moving her body to left and right, Karasuba was able to dodge all of them. "Oh shit," he cried when she stopped right in front of him and slashed her sword up, slicing his gun in half. "Seriously?" he cried dramatically, holding the pieces of his machine gun in hand. "Shut the fuck up," Karasuba growled, as she raised her sword above her head, and then brought it down in a quick and powerful strike. Clang. Quicker than her eyes could follow, the soldier raised the sword in his hand and turned it around to use the flat edge to block hers, causing a shower of sparks to fly between their weapons and a shockwave to erupt between them, tossing the helmet from his head. Karasuba along with the other Sekirei widened their eyes in shock when they saw the man easily holding his ground against the silver-haired wagtail, whose strength was unmatched by any human. "Just kidding, you need a fucking gun anyway." Asking that, the soldier turned his sword around and slashed horizontally, causing Karasuba to block their sword lock and jump back cautiously. It was at that moment Mutsu realized he wasn't holding his sword, but the parts of the man's gun Karasuba had caught in his hand. "When did he do that?" Natsu asked in shock. Immediately after Karasuba had found an opening in his stance, he was casually spinning Mutsu's sword around. She ran at him with incredible speed. Her body became a blur, before delivering a devastating strike from above, which he blocked easily by holding his sword backwards and raising it at shoulder level. He then turned it around when Karasuba started thrusting and slashing her sword at him from all directions, only to be blocked and parried by the man who appeared to be moving just as fast as she could. "What is he?" Kazehana stuttered in pure shock. "I didn't hear about a human capable of such a feat. Is he even human?" Mutsu asked, as he threw the destroyed gun down to the ground. "Miya, do you know anything about him?" He turned to the Sekirei pillar, who shook her head in response. Natsu being the one who was keeping her composure, Miya turned her head to Matsu and gave her a meaningful look. Shakily nodding her head, the bespectacled Sekirei used her power to contact MBI's headquarters. After a quick conversation, Matsu turned back to inform her leader with a shaky tone. "Takami-tan and Minaka-tan don't know anything about this, Miyu-tan." She shook her head, and they also knew next to nothing about him. "They have tried to search for information about that man, but they couldn't find anything," she finished. "He is a ghost." Kazehana and Mutsu were speechless. "So you are the type of woman who likes it rough, aren't you?" Karasuba could only growl to respond to his remark. Deciding to end the fight, she increased her speed and striking strength dramatically, only for him to surprise her by moving at an even greater speed. In a flash, her sword was knocked out of her hand, and then, she was sent flying across the field by a kick to the abdomen, her back crashing, slamming against several tanks, before heavily crashing down to the ground. However, as soon as she stopped skipping on the ground, with minimum damage, Karasuba shot up, kicking off the ground, and pushing her body into the air to reacquire her weapon. Grabbing it tightly in her left hand, Karasuba twisted her body around and shot down toward him, going for a vertical slash. "That's the face." He roared with a sadistic smile. Come on, woman. Give me all you have. Show me that excitement. He cried maliciously, and spread his arms, as if he wanted the silver-haired Sekirei to strike him. Karasuba roared, and brought her sword around with all her strength, only for him to move his body to the side at the last moment, with a very genuine smile on his face. The malicious expression had disappeared, as if it were never there. Just kidding, he said, as Karasuba crashed into the spot he had been standing on earlier. The ground around her feet and the place shattered, with several cracks spreading out from where she had struck her sword. Not wasting a second, she used all that impact force to launch herself toward him with inhuman speed. Her blade came screaming at him. Off you go. Just like the way their battle had been going, the man spun around, avoiding her blade, and shot his hand out to grab her cape, as well as the hem of her miniskirt, before tossing her into the ocean, much to the shock of everyone who was watching cool down now. He moved his head to the side when a silk Karasuba immediately shot at him again with a dangerous piercing attack. I guess not. He raised his sword, and blocked another ferocious strike from her. Oi, you think you can handle it, Karasuba? Shut up, Kazehana. Karasuba growled, as she tried to break through his defense. I can handle this. We have a new order. Matsu announced loudly after talking to the director of MBI. Minaka wanted us to bring him back to the base. There's a possibility that he's a Sekirei or at least a descendant of one. But that should not be possible. Matsu shook his head. I see. Miya stated calmly, as she removed her sword from its scabbard. However, he has come here with the enemies, and it's our duty to protect the unborn Sekirei. Her eyes hardened, and became cold. One way or another, he's not going out of this fight in one piece. She slashed her sword around, sending a powerful force at him, splitting the ground open in the result. Karasuba, seeing her pillar's attack coming, wisely jumped out of the way, forcing the blonde-haired man to meet the attack head-on. Miss me? He leapt backwards, doing it so fast he appeared to instantaneously teleport from one place to the other. The man then stepped his right foot back, dashing it on the ground, and took a firm stance, as he clashed with Karasuba, switching from normal defensive to offensive. Karasuba held her ground, as he started to attack, going toe-to-toe with the mysterious who had decided to attack with Matsu's sword. A bloodthirsty grin crossed her face when she blocked, and finally felt the force of his strike, which left her hand shaking in pain, but also in excitement. Miya had been the only one who could fight against her like this, despite the fact that the pillar had been holding back every time they sparred. Dust soon kicked up, and sparks flew between them, as their swords clashed, sending shockwave after shockwave throughout the area, blowing away every destroyed vehicle, including the heaviest tanks, around them. Taking the fight to a whole new level, the mysterious man and the fourth Sekirei fought across the battlefield that was the beach of Kamakura Island, attacking and counter-attacking each other with enough speed that not even Miya could interfere without causing some damage to her sister. Knocking each other back, the two wasted no time to kick the ground underneath their feet to charge at each other, allowing their blades to meet in yet another high-speed sword clash. The sharp winds caused by their clash had become strong enough to tear their clothes. Karasuba's disciplined black uniform had been ruined, literally, with several tears in her form-fitting shirt, and her cape was not in a much better condition. Brhh. With another ferocious cry, Karasuba spun around and slashed her sword as hard as she could. Instead of dodging like the last time, the blonde-haired man raised his sword to dodge, but with a speed only Miya's eyes could follow. As soon as their blades met, he spun it around, using Karasuba's sword as a focus point to push the sword into his other hand before pushing forward along the length of her sword, shocking Karasuba. The silver-haired Sekirei was only able to move her head out of the way at the last second, and jumped back, creating a considerable safe distance between the two of them. Nice trick. Karasuba commented, as she looked at her sword. A part of the handguard had been cut away. It had happened so fast she could only worry for her head. You haven't seen anything yet, little bird. He said, waving his hand around half-heartedly. His statement caused the Sekirei to widen their eyes in surprise. He had called them little birds. A human like him should not know about them. Who are you? Karasuba asked, pointing her sword at him. You are not here like them, aren't you? Maybe, he said thoughtfully, scratching his chin. Let's just say that I am very interested in the secret of this island, and I guess I have found it. He said, looking at Karasuba before turning his eyes to the other Sekirei. By the way, the name is Naruto. Naruto said, spinning his sword around now. Shall we continue? He asked, his eyes glinting in mild excitement. You asked for it, Blondie. She smirked. But before she could make a move, the ground underneath Naruto cracked and exploded, causing Naruto to lose his balance. It wasn't much, but Matsu's attack created a distraction that allowed Kazehana to create a tornado and sweep him away with it. What are you doing? Karasuba roared at Kazehana, who lowered her hand and smiled at her fellow Sekirei. I said I could handle it. We don't think so. The wind Sekirei shook her head. We need to bring him back to the base, as soon as possible. I am hungry, but before she could finish saying that, the tornado she had created was dispersed and disappeared completely, and Naruto soon appeared in front of them, unscratched. The wind user? He asked, stabbing his sword down to the ground. Guess I will have to do this the old way then. he stated, raising his hand. Wind and petals allow me to return the favor, my dear. Much to the Sekirei's shock, a cyclone of petals appeared and swept its way toward Kazehana and Kurisuba, who immediately stepped back and allowed the wind Sekirei to deal with the attack of her element. Kazehana raised her hand and stood her ground when the tornado slammed into her, doing her best to disperse it with her power over the wind. The black-haired Sekirei gritted her teeth as she was pushed back, her clothes torn by the wind. This power Kazehana closed her eyes as the tornado suddenly became stronger. Guys, a little help here. Metsu wasted no time to step in and created a large boulder from the ground with his power, blocking the tornado of petals midway, giving Kazehana just enough time to move out of the way. Your panties are flashing. Snapping her head to the side, Kazehana widened her eyes when she saw Naruto appearing above her and kicked Kurisuba away when she tried to attack him. She tried to summon her winds, but after seeing the super speed fight between him and Kurisuba, she had no doubt that she was not going to make it. However, before he could make a move, Miya appeared between them and slashed her sword at him, aiming to tear him apart with her trademark attack. However, before any shockwave could be made, Naruto raised his sword and stopped hers midway with the flat edge of his weapon. She struck much harder than Kurisuba, but it was nothing he couldn't handle. Hold the Totsuka ice sword. Naruto smirked as he glanced at the handguard-less blade before looking into the Sekirei pillar's icy brown eyes. She asked coldly, grinding her blade harder against his. You are not human, are you? Come on, you have already seen what I am capable of, haven't you? He asked, pushing his blade back. What are you then? Don't know how to figure that out myself, he said, disengaging their sword lock, pushing Miya back. So you're here to take me into your custody, aren't you? One way or another. Let's do it then, Naruto said, as he took a stance. Time seemed to freeze around them, as finally, on an unspoken signal, Miya made the first move. To the other members of the disciplined squad, it appeared as if Miya had teleported. In an instant, she stood several meters away from Naruto, who had yet to make a move, then the next she was right in front of him, her sword brought back for a deadly piercing attack, instead of her usual slashing attack. The Sekirei held their breath, waiting for Naruto to counter the attack of their strongest. Instead, he dropped his weapons and threw his hands into the air, crying, I surrender. Miya stopped her blade that instant. The tip of Totsuka had already touched the skin between his eyes, but the force of her extremely fast thrust was enough to blow his spiky blonde hair back and cause him to lean his head back slightly in response. Even nature itself didn't dare to make a sound. Kazehana dropped her jaw, having the urge to fasp him. What? Miya asked the tall man, hardening her eyes. You heard me, I surrender. What game were you playing? I am not playing anything. Naruto shook his head. Fighting a strong opponent is too troublesome, you know. A strong opponent. A tick mark appeared on Kurisuba's forehead as she shouted at him. Are you implying that I am weak? You catch on quick. He casually replied, causing the silver-haired Sekirei to glare at him. His attention then shifted back to Miya, who was still keeping the tip of her sword between his eyes. So are you going to remove that sword from my face or not? You know, looking at him from this close, he's kinda cute. Kazehana commented, as she stood in front of the one-way glass with the rest of the disciplined squad, to look at the mysterious blonde, who was sitting in the interrogation room with a bored look on his face. He had his eyes closed, his feet on the table, his hands behind his head, and the chair he was sitting on leaned back on two legs. The handcuff they had put on his wrist rested on the table in front of him. After Naruto had surrendered, it had been easy for them to bring him back to MBI's base near the Sekirei spaceship. They had brought him to the medical bay and tried to run a few tests on him. They had tried to take his blood, but the doctors of MBI had given up when every syringe's nozzle had broken the moment they touched his skin. Without any other choice, they had brought him to an interrogation room, hoping to force an answer out of him from there. The disciplined squad had been assembled after they had had lunch, because currently, they were the only ones that could hold their grounds against him. Miya, meanwhile, was looking at the blonde with a puzzled look on her face, mainly because she didn't understand why he was here. For some reason, she had a feeling that he wanted to be here, inside MBI. With the power that could easily defeat a Sekirei like Kurisuba or Kazehana, it was possible for him to run away from her, yet he had chosen to surrender, and let them capture him with the lamest reason in that situation. Who was he? What was he? Was he one of them, or was he a descendant of a Sekirei, or was he something else? You know you can't think of anyone, but your Ashikabi is like Kazehana-tan. Natsu shook her head, pointing it out. Ashikabi were the individuals to whom Sekirei became attached to, in both the contractual and emotional sense, making them Sekirei's destined and true love. Who knows, he might be my Ashikabi. We have the same power, see? Kazehana said, as she created a small whirlwind with flower petals in the palm of her hand. But power like that, he might be a Sekirei, Kazehana, Kurisuba said, shaking her head. Kazehana said nothing in response, as the door to the interrogation room was opened, and a woman with black hair and grey eyes, wearing a white lab coat over a black top and trousers, walked in. Hello again, Naruto-san. Takami Sahashi greeted him, as she took her seat on the chair at the other side of the table, opposite Naruto. You're that chick who tried to take my blood, aren't you? He opened one of his eyes and said in acknowledgement of her presence. I have to admit, I was very surprised. Takami nodded her head. What are you, exactly? The Man of Steel himself, Clark Kent. I am being very serious here, Naruto-san. Naruto waved his hand dismissively in response, before looking around. What are you doing? Where is my Katsudin? Takami could only bury her hand in her face. You want to interrogate me, right? What the hell is a Katsudin? Kurasuba asked in annoyance. Well, Natsu explained the Katsudin is a very famous Japanese food. It's a bowl of rice topped with a deep-fried pork cutlet, egg, vegetables, and condiments. Recently, it has become a very famous gag of Japanese films about policemen. Many people think that suspects will speak the truth with tears when they have eaten Katsudin, and are asked, did you ever think about how your mother feels about this? First, I am not a policewoman. Takami removed her hand from her face, and started, and second, you have watched too many drama films. Ah, what a letdown. He threw his hands in the air, and leaned back, sighing longingly in boredom. Naruto-san, I will ask you one more time. MBI's head researcher asked seriously, what are you? Naruto then sat straight up, and leaned forward with a very serious expression on his face. Takami and the Sekirei were quite taken aback by this. Me? He asked extremely seriously, and Takami nodded her head. I'm a god. The black-haired woman's arm slipped, causing Takami to slam her forehead down to the table. The Sekirei clearly didn't know how to react to this. So lady, where is my Katsudin? He asked, leaning his head back. Takami could only click her tongue in annoyance, and left the room, before returning with a bowl of Katsudin for him a few minutes later. Here you go. Takami said, as she put the bowl down in front of him. Happy now? Ah, thank you. Naruto grinned, as he accepted the chopsticks from the woman. Man, I am starving. He wasted no time to dig in. Alright, I need you to answer a few questions. Takami said, as she took out a notebook and a pen. Ask away. He said, with a mouthful of food, causing Miya, who had managed to keep a very straight face all the while, to wince in disgust. What is your name? Naruto. Just Naruto? She asked in interest. I have a last name, but that's none of your business. Sigh, okay then. Takami nodded, and wrote down, where are you from? Japan. You don't look Japanese to me. Did you dye your hair? Are you wearing a lens? Lady, my hair is natural, so are my eyes. Naruto said, pointing the chopsticks at his hair. Anyway, I guarantee you that I am 100% Japanese. Okay then. Takami nodded her head. How old are you? I'm 19. Do you have any family members? Nope, I am an orphan. Oh, so sorry about that. Takami said, lowering her head apologetically. Don't worry, my parents died a long time ago. He shrugged his shoulders in response. Naruto-san, how did you acquire such power on par with the members of our discipline squad? 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and running 10 kilometers every single day. He answered, but added when Takami gave him a weird look. What? You didn't read One Punch Man? You know, the guy who can one-shot his opponents. I'm a fan. That's not the... Also, I know they are called Sekirei, Naruto interrupted, pointing his chopsticks at the disciplined squad, causing them to widen their eyes slightly in surprise. How did he know they were there? No reason for you to hide that from me. How did you, lady? You and your coworkers literally dragged me all around your base earlier. You should have expected me to pick up a thing or two about them. He mocked, before adding, next time, make sure to put earmuffs and blindfolds on your prisoners. What a bunch of amateurs. He said sarcastically before going back to finish his food. I will make sure to remember that. Takami made a small smile. You haven't answered my early question, Naruto-san. About my power. Well, I have no reason to tell you. Takami sighed. She had expected as much. Alright, that aside, what were you doing inside a tank of the United Nations Army? I got lost in the road of life, and found my way inside that tank this morning. He answered casually, much to Takami's displeasure. Thanks for the meal. He said, clapping his hands together, and lowering his head before looking up. Can I have another one, please? He requested. Sigh, anyway, Naruto-san. She spoke, closing the notebook. I'm sorry to say this, but you need to stay here. Do whatever you want, it's not like I have anywhere to go anyway. He said, waving one hand in the air. Until we can determine who and what you are, we will have to keep you in a cell, you know. All the better. He stated, smirking mysteriously. Takami could only sigh. This young man was too carefree in a very weird way. Name. Naruto. Country. Japan. Age. 19. Height. 6 feet 4. Weight. 180 pounds. Hair color. Blonde. Eye color. Blue. So literally, we know next to nothing about him aside from his facial appearances. Takedo Isama, an MBI researcher, who had grey messy hair that hides a part of his face, and wore a turtleneck sweater and sweatpants covered by a white lab coat, said, as he read the file of Takami had made from the information Naruto had provided her earlier that day. Are you sure that he was not lying about his country? I am not 100% sure about that. His eyes are blue, and he is blonde, but his Japanese accent is perfect. Takami shook her head before turning to the man who was sitting on the other side of the table, with a pleased smirk on his face. Oi, Minaka, what do you think about this? Minaka Hiroto was the chairman and founder of MBI. He was a slender, bespectacled, black-haired man who wore a Kamen Rider-like outfit complete with red scarf. Along with Takami, he was the man who had discovered Kamakura Island and the Sekirei spaceship, using its highly advanced technologies to create his company a few years prior. The man with the abilities of a Sekirei, Minaka said finally. The smirk had never left his face. How exciting. So that's all you care about? Takami asked while shaking her head in disappointment, while Takehito could only chuckle at the chairman's excitement. I should have expected as much. We have to keep him here at all costs. Minaka said he's a valuable asset to our company, humanity, and the Sekirei. There are so many things we can learn from him. You don't have to worry about that. The brat looked like he didn't want to go anywhere. Takami pointed out in annoyance. Yes, Miya told me she had a feeling that he wanted to be captured, that he wanted to be here. Takehito nodded his head, and turning the tablet in his hand around, showing them the recorder of the battle between Naruto and Miya in slow motion. I also believe that someone who fought on par with Karasuba, summoned tornadoes stronger than Kazehana, and could drop his weapon, and cry I surrender. As fast as the Sekirei pillar could move should not be captured that easily. Well, he did say he didn't want to fight a strong opponent, remember? Takami turned back to the black-haired chairman. Still, how are we going to learn from him anyway? We couldn't even get a small sample of his blood. We couldn't even cut his hair. She had tried that earlier, and no matter how she had tried, his hair had remained. From what we have seen, he has incredible speed and power, possibly on par with Karasuba, and might even be Miya. His skin, while appearing to be normal, is impenetrable. He also has great skills with sword, able to keep up with Karasuba, and elemental manipulation over wind, able to create vortexes that could not be negated by Kazehana. That's all we know about him. Takehito nodded his head before suggesting seriously, should we use stronger measures? I am not going to treat him like a lab rat. Takami said, holding her hands up. I am not some mad scientist in science fiction movies. She finished. Don't worry about that, Takumi-kun. Minaka grinned. Let our birds take care of that. All we need to do is relax and observe the fun from behind. Takami could only drill a hole in the man's head with her gaze. The next morning, oh look, my first visitors. Naruto said happily, as he tossed the book he was reading to the side, and stood up from the bed to look at them. The disciplined squad plus Takami Sahashi, you guys warm my heart so much. Allow me to give you all a big hug. He quickly approached them with a very genuine smile, and his arms outstretched. However, before he could reach any of them, he slammed into a thick glass wall, knocking himself back slightly. Man, that hurt, he said, squatting on the ground while holding his nose with both hands. The Sekirei, sans Miya and Takami couldn't help but sweat drop at the blonde-haired young man's antics. They all knew he was fooling around with them. The superhuman who could keep up with the Sekirei in a one-on-one battle, and had skin as hard as a rock, should not be hurt by an impact like that. Should fuck my eyes then. Saying in annoyance, Takami turned her head to one of the guards standing outside his prison, which was a highly advanced alien tech energy-powered prison that could even hold back Sekirei physically, as strong as Karasuba or Miya, when the latter was holding back by a whole lot. It also had super strong glasses for walls, with a single bed, a table, a chair, and an internet-connected flat-screen TV for the mysterious young man inside. Who's the idiot that gave him those neon orange clothes? She asked, pointing at Naruto, who, just like she had said, was wearing a bright neon orange outfit. The fact that his shirt and pants didn't have any other colors or decoration didn't help her eyes much either. Ma'am, we had no choice. The guard stuttered with a red face. He said he would watch porn at maximum volume if we didn't give him something orange to wear. That answer caused various different reactions from Sekirei. Miya sighed in displeasure. Karasuba and Matsu stared at the blonde like he had grown a second head, while Kazehana could only laugh lightly, using a hand to cover her mouth. Matsu, on the other hand, was giggling rather perversely. Yes, it's very uncomfortable, ma'am. His colleague nodded his head furiously in agreement, causing Takami to sigh in defeat. At least choose something, you know what, forget it. Takami sighed, and turned her head back to Naruto, asking Naruto-san, can I talk to you for a second? Sure, go ahead, I am all ears. Everyone flinched, and jumped in surprise when they heard that coming from behind them. Snapping their heads around, even Miya had to drop their jaws in shock when they saw another Naruto walking toward them, while eating a cup of instant ramen with a pair of bamboo chopsticks. He was also wearing sunglasses, an orange drinking helmet, and a fully stuffed and heavy orange backpack on his shoulders. What how where when Matsu stuttered in shock while rapidly turning her head, pointing between the two Naruto. It was at that moment the doctor and Sekirei realized the one they had been talking to inside the prison was just a full-body picture of a brightly grinning Naruto. What? Why are you guys looking at me like that? He asked, acting like nothing had happened, and walked toward the access control box on the prison, before casually entering the password, causing the door to open for him to walk in. Walking into the room and closing the door behind him, Naruto removed the backpack from his back and placed it on the table. He then did the same to his sunglasses before picking up the picture and throwing it on the bed, where he took his seat and continued enjoying his meal, leaning his back against the glass wall. Stop staring. I know I am handsome and attractive, and how did you do that? Takami managed breathlessly. Do what? He replied with a question. Can you be serious for 1 second? How did you get out of this room in the first place, and where did you go? She then snapped her head to the guards, who quickly defended themselves. Without any other choice, Natsu quickly used her power to gain access to the camera within his room, and saw that he had never left the room and MBI's facility in general since yesterday. The only times he had been outside of the place were when he went to the toilet, but he had returned to the place shortly after that. Well, I felt a little bit hungry, so I went to Tokyo to shop for some ramen and soft drinks. Naruto pointed to his backpack, answering with a very straight face, and causing Takami and the Sekirei to drop their jaws in shock. The pillar, meanwhile, didn't share the same expression, but she had her eyes widened, as white as dinner plates. I have also bought an electric kettle, so would you mind giving me a power outlet and some water, please? I need to cook some more ramen. Kazehana whispered. Much like the other 3 Sekirei, she was still trying to pick her jaw from the ground. Me? Lying? No way. He laughed, more at himself than at them. Takami growled, before sighing longingly while massaging the bridge of her nose with her fingers, doing her best to keep her composure and be professional. She had to admit she had never met someone who could make her lose her temper faster than Manaka. Should she believe him? Should she believe anything that came out of his mouth in the first place? Hey, can I ask you one thing? Naruto suddenly raised his hand. Is it necessary to bring the entire team with you? Before she could open her mouth to speak, he continued. I mean, it's not like I have a problem with that. You're hot, and those birds behind you are smoking. It would be a whole lot better if you left that guy out of this. Nothing against you, Scarf. Then taken, Mutsu said calmly, while the girls, even Miya, were feeling flattered by his compliments. My, aren't you such a charmer? Kazehana commented, having a smile on her face. More like a smartus. The silvered-haired Sekirei commented sarcastically, smirking when Naruto turned his head to look at her with half-lifted eyes. Well, aren't you going to answer my question? Naruto asked while pushing the last mouthful of noodles into his mouth. Can you please finish your food first? Miya spoke up for the first time. It's rude to talk to others when your mouth is full. Should I expect anything less from a girl with a haircut? Naruto muttered sarcastically, but loud enough for everyone to hear. It caused a tick mark to appear on Miya's forehead, and her hand to tighten around her sword. Takami, if you please, he said, glancing at the black-haired woman. Well, they have reasons to be here with me. Takami said after she had taken a deep breath. We are still deciding whether or not you are a threat to MBI and the Sekirei, so for the time being, these Sekirei of the disciplined squad will take turns watching over you to make sure that you are not going to try anything funny. So I have 4 smoking hot chicks and a scarf-wearing guy for babysitters. I am not complaining. Naruto shrugged before asking though, don't you have better things to do? I mean, aren't you 5 the only current defenders of this island? We believe the invaders are not going to try anything anytime soon. Takami shook her head. They have already suffered great losses in men and weapons after their first attempt to invade this island. She explained that for the meantime, besides training and helping us take care of the unborn Sekirei, they don't have anything interesting to do. So I guess why not let them entertain themselves with a brat who cannot stop being a troll and making a fool out of himself for a second. She finished with a satisfied smirk. Haha, very funny. Naruto laughed mockingly and sarcastically before asking, you guys are okay with that? I don't see why not, Mutsu answered with a nod of his head. Me neither. Oh, this is going to be so interesting. Kurasuba said, smiling sadistically. Can you imagine all the fun we are going to have? Without a care, Naruto gave her the middle finger. Why don't you suck on this? He asked before glancing at Natsuyu. Well, I usually spend my free time surfing the internet and spying on the enemies. Natsu said while adjusting her glasses. So it would be nice to have something else to do. Naruto nodded his head in understanding before glancing at Kazehana. Seeing him looking at her, she said. I don't have any problem with taking care of you. The Wind Sekirei giggled while using a hand to cover her mouth. Appreciate that. Naruto chuckled before looking at Miya. What about you, princess? Someone has to keep a close eye on you. She stated calmly, you are dangerous. Like I have been told several times. Naruto nodded his head before turning to Takami. Is there anything else? We also would like to have a test on your strength, Naruto-san. She stated, how well can you control your wind power? What is the limit of your power? Exactly how strong are you? Takami questioned curiously. We have already seen you holding yourself against Kurasuba. You are fast, skilled with a sword, and I have no doubt that you are physically extremely strong, as well. We would love to test your speed and strength, but right now we would like to see how well you can handle your power. She quickly added, for safety reasons, of course. Don't worry, I understand what you are trying to say. Naruto said, basically, you want me to show you power, right? That's right. Takami said, as she walked toward the access control box and entered the password, opening the door, and we would like to see you doing that against one of the Sekirei here. How about 4? Naruto asked, taking a long gulp of soft drink from his helmet. I am sure I can manage all 4 super ladies at the same time. It took them several seconds to realize the hidden meaning in his words. Why did your little Karasuba reach her hand for the handle of her sword? If it weren't for Matsu and Kazehana who were doing their best to hold her back, she would surely rush into Naruto's room to cut him to pieces. Miya was the only one who managed to keep a straight face, but even the strongest Sekirei couldn't stop her cheeks from dusting pink. Do I seriously have to wear this? Naruto asked, looking at all the high-tech devices he was wearing on his body. Naruto had also changed his neon orange clothes to a normal outfit, which consisted of a normal orange shirt and black pants, plus a zipped-up jacket and brown boots with black gloves. After he had been released from his new room, Naruto had been taken to a wide and empty area outside MBI's base building, where the Sekirei usually trained every day. While the place was built using many alien technologies, it could never handle a battle between 2 Sekirei, or between a Sekirei and someone with Sekirei's abilities. You might not let us take a sample of your blood, but can you at least let us check your vital signs while you are fighting? Takami said, as she pushed the device on his right temple before doing the same to his left one. There, no harm is done for you, and no gain for us, as well. I guess I can let you do that. Naruto nodded. You sure they can handle the fight? These are Sekirei's technologies. While small, they are strong enough to withstand several pounds of C4 explosives. Takami explained, as she checked the devices on his arms once last time to make sure they were functioning normally. Alien. Naruto chuckled, and I thought those science fiction movies about aliens were just bluffing about their technologies. Their strengths, on the other hand, were a completely different story. He had been there, and experienced that with his own body more than once, after all. There you go. Takami said, as she stood up. Everything works just fine. After saying that, she walked away, joining a group of scientists who were standing in front of many computers-like machines and recording devices. The chairman wasn't present, but Naruto knew that he was watching in his personal office. Alright, so which one of you want to experience what I would like to call a one-side battle? Naruto shouted confidently, and also rather arrogantly, to the members of the disciplined squad, who were standing at the far side of the field. I'm so going to wipe that smile from his face, Karasuba growled, as she pulled her sword out of its scabbard, causing the steel hard blade to glint dangerously in the sunlight. She stepped forward, but before she could do it, she was stopped by a hand which was holding a handguard-less katana. The other Sekirei found themselves whitening their eyes in surprise at the decision of their pillar, while the scientists were wondering if they should retreat back and observe the battle from several miles away. I will fight him, Miya stated firmly, as she took a step forward. Karasuba looked at her leader for a second before closing her eyes, nodding her head. Fair enough. She tossed Miya her sword, which she caught before saying, give that to him. I know they want to test his wind power, but I would like to see how good he is against you, 01. Miya turned her head around, giving the silver-haired Sekirei a look before nodding her head and walking forward. Miya, well, I don't want you to kill him, you will have to fight him seriously. Takami shouted, I want to see everything, so you will have to push him to his limit. Very well. Miya nodded her head. So the big boss herself is going to fight me? Naruto said, as Miya stopped 100 feet in front of Naruto. You sure you want to do this? Naruto asked with a small smirk. I will try my best to hold back, Miya said, as she tossed Karasuba's sword to Naruto, who lazily raised his hand and caught the sword. However, right after the moment his fingers had secured around the handle, Naruto reappeared in front of the sword-wielding Sekirei pillar, moving so fast he left an afterimage in the place where he had stood. He came at her with a lightning-fast and powerful diagonal slash that would slice her from Miya's left shoulder to her right hip if she hadn't raised her sword with matching speed to block. A loud clang thundered like the sound of a lightning bolt tore through the sky, causing a powerful shockwave that knocked the white coats-wearing people on their asses, and buffeted the hair of every Sekirei back, due to the violent winds that followed after it. You know what? Naruto smirked, as he looked at Miya's icy brown eyes. He trailed his eyes down, and the left corner of his lips curved up when he saw 2 large cracks under her boots. He expected no less from the Queen of Sekirei herself. I highly recommend you to do otherwise. Miya said nothing, and broke their sword lock before immediately engaging Naruto in an out-of-earth sword clash. With the sword in his right hand, Naruto came at Miya fast and furious, and so did Miya. They didn't try to block, they didn't even try to parry each other's wild yet extremely accurate strikes. They attacked, and let their sword clash in the middle, moving so fast the normal spectators could no longer see their arms and their weapons, and striking so strong each time their sword came into contact with each other, a shockwave was created. Takami said breathlessly before snapping herself back to reality. How are his vital signs? She hit one of the researchers in the back of his head, causing him to look at the computer's scene in front of him. What he saw shocked him to the core. They're normal. He stuttered. Takami gasped, before pushing the man out of the way to look at Naruto's vital signs herself. His blood pressure was 120/80. Naruto's heart beat at 65 beats, and he breathed 18 times per minute. It was perfectly normal for a young man like him. Hold on a second, Takami realized. They were too perfect. Shockingly perfect to be exact. No one should be able to have such perfect vital signs like his, especially when someone was fighting, and moving at the speed faster than a human being could blink their eyes. It didn't take long for Takami to realize this battle against the Sekirei pillar was just like a normal walk in the park on a normal day like him. Miya hardened her eyes, and in a powerful slash, she managed to knock him back, but parted her mouth slightly when she realized she had been pushed back 2 meters, as well, with her feet skidding on the ground. Naruto landed gracefully on his feet, a small smirk on his face when he looked up, and locked eyes with Miya. Then, without pausing for a second, their free hand reached out, and simultaneously removed the sheaths of their weapons, throwing them away, as they rushed at each other one more time. Metal blades clashed for the first time, as they met in the middle of the field, sending sparks flying between them. "You're still holding back, aren't you?" Naruto asked with a smile, as their blades shook slightly by the force they were applying to them. Miya said nothing, and kept her eyes cold, and her face blank like usual. "Man, do you ever smile? You have 20 or something in your ass or something?" He asked in amusement, and Miya decided to ignore it. "You're holding back too. You do understand that I have no problem ending your miserable life with my blade, don't you?" She asked emotionlessly, causing Naruto to smirk. "I suggest you stop or I will hurt you." "Do your best then." She loosened her grip on her sword, and stopped using her strength, allowing Naruto to win, and slashed his sword forward. She sidestepped, and dodged by moving her body to the side, so fast she appeared to be blinking. Then, while standing in the same stance, she slashed her sword, and caused a ripple in the air, sending her trademark shockwave attack at him at near point-blank range. Near, because based on his performance so far she knew he could dodge it, but his evasion would give her a wide opening to go for the strike that would end the fight. However, Miya didn't expect him to stand still, causing the shockwave cut to slice clean through his neck, before traveling onward to the sky above, parting the clouds in the process. Miya froze with her eyes widening in shock, and for a second no one dared to speak a word, not until Kurasuba's sword slipped from his hand. His head fell from the neck, and landed beside his feet, rolling on the ground. His body followed soon after, dropping heavily on the ground. What the fuck? Did she just cut his head off? What the hell? Miya. Is it necessary to go that hard on him? Takami shouted to the Sekirei pillar, her face green. The Sekirei and humans cried out at the same time. Shock, terror, and horror filled the air, as the head came to a stop. Meanwhile, Miya was just staring at the body. Her eyes were wider than they had ever been, not because she had just cut Naruto's head off, because she couldn't see any blood coming from his neck. Was he a robot, built by the Union of Nations that wanted to invade Kamakura Island? "Sai, I guess it can't be helped, we will collect his body." Takami shouted, and turned to the others, giving them a meaningful look. "Hold on, stand back." Miya shouted, stopping MBI's employees from making a step toward them. With her guard on, she carefully approached the body, and turned it around with the flat side of her sword, Tetsuga. Reaching her hand out, Miya bent her back so that she could examine the dead body. "Gotcha." Miya nearly jumped back when the head of a grinning Naruto shot out from inside his jacket, causing the Sekirei to gasp in surprise. "Haha, I knew you would fall for it." His happiness was cut short, because he was forced to clap his hands together around the Tetsuka blade in front of his face, to stop Miya from impaling his head with it. "What the hell, woman? That is not how you are supposed to react. He tricked us," Takami stated. Should she feel surprise? But what about? She turned her head to the head on the ground, and nearly face-palmed when she saw a coconut with a yellow wig on top of it. "Where did he get that coconut from?" she asked in disbelief. Just like a kid, Kurasuba growled in annoyance while Kazehana and Matsu were giggling amusingly. Is he even taking this seriously? However, it was a terrifying thought, considering that his opponent was the Queen of Sekirei. His power was from another dimension entirely. But how did he do that? Matsu wondered. How did he even manage to trick Miya? You seem to have a lot of tricks up your sleeves, don't you, Naruto-san? Miya asked, as she put her hand on the end of Tetsuga, and pushed down, as hard as she could. The blade slipped between Naruto's palms, and stabbed into the ground because Naruto had tilted his head to the side to dodge at the last second. "You haven't seen anything yet, Miya-chan." Naruto grinned. His grin then turned into a sly smirk. "I, on the other hand, have seen it all." Miya became confused. "You seem to have a thing for purple, don't you?" It took Miya several seconds to realize the meaning in his question. With red hues on her cheeks, she removed her sword from the ground, and raised it to the side. Grinning, Naruto kicked his feet, and dashed upward on the ground to avoid Miya's blade, which yet again unleashed another shockwave, that left a long thin cut on the ground, after it had blown a large amount of earth and dirt up. Holding her sword at her left hip, Miya rushed to Kurasuba's sword on the ground to prevent the blonde from retrieving his weapon, but came to a halt when Naruto went for the fake head instead. Seizing the coconut from the ground, and into his hand, Naruto removed the wig, and moved his body to the side to dodge Miya's lightning-fast slash, that came from above. He then crouched down to dodge a horizontal slash, but raised the coconut above his head, causing Miya's sword to slice through a small part of it. Removing that part from the coconut, and standing up, Naruto took out a long straw from his pocket, and put it into the coconut before he started to drink the water from it. "A second please." Naruto raised his hand, and told Miya, who looked at him with half-lifted eyes before rushing forward to attack him again. "Come on woman, can I just enjoy a coconut in peace?" Naruto whined, as he was forced to dodge Miya's ferocious attacks. "Enough fooling around," Miya said, as she slashed left and right. "Fight me seriously." She then raised her sword above her head, holding the grip with both hands it Toryuden, cut in two. With that declaration, she brought her sword down, unleashing a tremendous force that flipped the entire area in front of her up, and blasted Naruto into the air. The blonde, however, simply backflipped before landing gracefully on his feet several feet away from the Sekirei pillar, who raised her eyebrows slightly when she saw no damage on his body. "Okay done," Naruto announced, removing the straw from his mouth. "It's my turn now," he shouted, and threw the coconut at Miya, aiming for her head. The Sekirei pillar simply raised her sword, and sliced the fruit into two pieces with ease. However, as soon as the parts parted away, Naruto was right in front of her with his fist crooked back. He wasted no time to throw his punch, and Miya was forced to move her head to the side to dodge it, feeling the winds gazing at her face. She brought her sword up, but before she could deliver a strike, he shot his other hand out, and backhanded her wrists, hurling her sword to the other direction, before pushing his right foot on the ground to launch his knee into her abdomen. Miya twisted, and leapt her body to the side, causing his knee to miss her stomach by an inch. Using her momentum, Miya slashed her sword, going for a horizontal slash. However, once again her attack missed its target when Naruto bent his back backwards. Putting his hands on the ground, Naruto twisted his body around, and sent a roundhouse kick to the side of Miya's face, which she managed to dodge using the flat side of her Totsuga. But before she could even think about a counterattack, Naruto had already gotten to his feet, punching her once again. Miya barely had the time to bring her sword up to block, using the sharp blade. However, his fist stopped, and disappeared from her sight, and the next thing she knew, she was blasted back several meters by a vortex of winds, which she managed to disperse a second later with her sword. "Indeed your wind is quite strong," Miya said, as she repositioned herself on the ground, holding her sword in front of her. "But you will have to do a lot more than that to hurt me, Naruto-san," she stated confidently before noting a small, arrogant smirk that appeared on his face. Generating a huge cyclone from his hand, Naruto then swung his hand to the side, sending the cyclone at Miya, who was fully prepared for the attack. However, her eyes widened in shock when she saw him taking a deep breath before expelling from his mouth a massive orb of rotating flame. The fireball soon fused with the wind cyclone, forming a gigantic firestorm that leveled anything on its path while traveling toward Miya. "Did he just breathe a fireball out of his mouth?" Natsu cried out in shock. Unlike her sisters and brother, Miya had no time to wonder how he could control another element, as she had to sweep her sword to the side, using the tremendous force of her attack to disperse the tornado, sending the fire all across the field. Miya quickly spotted Naruto, who smirked and moved a little to the side, to avoid being burned by one of the larger fires on the ground. Before she could attack him, her eyes shot wide open in shock when she saw Naruto's hand crackling with blue electricity, which then expanded, and headed to Miya in the form of a large hound. Keeping her composure, and stopping herself from wondering how it could be so vivid, Miya waited for the lightning beast to lunge at her to dodge, lowering her body to the ground before spinning around, slashing her sword in a swirl, cleaving the hound's head off in the process. Looking up, Miya gasped when she saw not just one, two, or three, but a huge pack of lightning hounds were charging at her from every direction, their tails being connected to Naruto's two hands. "I'm not done yet, Miya-chan," she heard him whispered in a very low and calm tone, and then much to her shock, three gigantic water dragons appeared from the air, circling around her before raising high into the air, and bearing their fangs down at Miya, leaving the spectators in a state of absolute shock. "Like I have already told you, people, I am a fucking god." With that, the dragons crashed down at the same time as the hounds. "I see," Miya said, as she tightened her grip on her sword, a small smile appeared on her lips. "Then I shall show you the power of a goddess." A thin purple aura appeared around her slender body, as she glanced at the water dragon and lightning hounds. Releasing one hand from the grip of Totsuga, Miya raised her sword to the side, and then spun around, generating powerful shockwaves in every direction, heading toward the water dragons. Without pausing for a second, she took her sword back in her usual stance, and charged forward, slashing her way through the lightning hounds. Her sword and movement could no longer be seen by her fellow Sekirei. It happened in less than 1/10 of a second. She took care of all the hounds about the same time the shockwaves crashed into the water dragons, mercilessly demolishing them, and causing water to be blown all around the island. Miya then jumped into the air, avoiding the water-infused lightning that splashed on the ground, and launching herself at Naruto, who refused to move despite the fact that Miya was coming at him with the intent to kill. As she brought her sword down, sand suddenly shot out from the ground around Naruto, and gathered in front of him to create a giant sand creature that greatly resembled a tanuki. The moment it had taken a completed form, the tanuki's hand shot up and clapped tightly around Totsuka with amazing strength, stopping it from reaching its target, causing Miya to glare at the sand creature and the man standing behind it. She immediately went for another attack, but suddenly found herself unable to move her feet. Looking down, Miya widened her eyes when she saw the ground underneath her turning into mud, which quickly swallowed her up to her ankles. Wind, water, fire, lightning, sand, or if just how many elements can he control? Kazehana asked in shock, the feeling that was being shared by two of the Sekirei. The last one, meanwhile, was trembling, not in fear, not in shock, but in excitement. Karasuba had never felt such emotions in her life. Where she whispered with a sadistic grin, "Show me more Naruto, show me your power." "You know, Miya-chan," Naruto said to Miya, who cut down the tanuki and freed herself from the mud to attack him with her sword. "If the two of us fight seriously, we will probably destroy this island in less than a minute. Look at the damage we have caused while holding back." Miya glanced around and saw the destruction that had gone beyond her expectation. Had she really lost herself in this battle? "I don't think that is something you want, correct?" he asked with a smile, as he grabbed her hand, stopping her from slicing his cheek. Miya was quite taken aback by his smile because it was different from all the ones she had seen from him. "So let's end this battle with our attacks." Miya widened her eyes in shock when he pushed her back one move. Smiling, he raised one finger. "One serious move." "Seriously," he said. "Very well." Miya steeled her nerves as she held Totsuka tightly in her hands. With speed faster than she had ever moved in her life, Miya attacked Naruto, slashing her long sword with a tremendous force that could easily demolish the very land she was standing on. But after she had finished her attack and came to a halt, Totsuka was no longer in her hand. Naruto had also disappeared from her sight. All she saw, for a brief moment, was a flash of gold. Pulling her hand back, the Sekirei pillar touched her cheek and felt slightly wet. Looking at the tip of her finger, she saw a very small amount of blood. On her right cheek, close to her cheekbone, was a diagonal cut, which was small, no more than half a centimeter. Slowly turning her head around, Miya saw Naruto looking at her with a wide grin on his face. His arm was extending forward, hand loosely holding the handle of her weapon. "That's enough for today, don't you think?" Miya accepted her weapon and gave him a nod of her head before looking up. With that, Naruto turned around and swaggered away happily. "Oi Takami, I hope it is lunchtime." "Shut the hell up," the black-haired woman cried, as she pointed her hand to the devices beside her, that had been destroyed earlier by water infused with high-voltage electricity. "You did this on purpose, didn't you?" "Do not worry, I will compensate for the damage later," Naruto said, giving her a nice guy grin. "Like hell, you can. Do you even know how much they cost?" Takami sighed when Naruto waved his hand in the air and walked away casually, but still she looked up and looked at the sky like everyone else to think. "He is this strong," Miya muttered. What she was seeing gave her the feeling that the sky had been cut in half. That night, hahaha. What a bunch of idiots. Sitting on his bed in his new room, Naruto laughed wholeheartedly as he watched a funny scene of The Circus, a 1928 silent film written and directed by Charlie Chaplin himself. Calming down, Naruto reduced the volume with the remote control before asking loudly, "How long were you planning to just stand there watching me anyway?" He turned his head around and looked at Miya, who was standing at the other side of the glass with a tray of food in her hands. The Sekirei pillar had changed out of her discipline uniform and was wearing the traditional attire of a Maiko, priestess, that consisted out of a purple hakama, a white haori with a sash-like belt, wooden sandals, and a white ribbon to partially hold her hair in place. She completed her outfit with a see-through veil that went down to below her knees and extended down even lower from the sleeves of her top and kept together by a thin purple string in front of her chest. "I don't want to disturb you, Naruto-san." Miya shook her head. "You seem like you're enjoying yourself. You don't have to worry about that." He shook his head. "Is it my dinner?" "Yes, Takami wanted to give this to you." Miya nodded his head. "So you volunteered yourself?" Naruto grinned as he stood up and walked toward the doorman. "I am touched. This is my shift," Miya stated calmly while entering the password for Naruto's room, causing Naruto to lower his shoulder dramatically. "I will be keeping my eye on you tonight and tomorrow morning." "Ha, is that so?" Naruto nodded his head in understanding as Miya walked into the room. "Thank you anyway." Miya said nothing as she put the tray of food down to the table before glancing at the trash bin that was full of empty cups of instant ramen and chopsticks. "Man, does it hurt for you to smile a little?" he asked with a voice of sarcasm. Ignoring him, she asked, "You like ramen?" Miya looked at him. "Are you sure it's good for your health, Naruto-san?" "Ah, you care about me, don't you?" Naruto asked teasingly as he took his seat on his chair and pulled the tray of food toward Itadakimasu. He picked up the chopsticks and announced with a smile, "You don't have to stand like that. Go ahead and make yourself comfortable anywhere you want," he said, waving his hand around the room. Miya lowered her head in gratitude before sitting down traditionally on her knees on the bed. As he enjoyed his dinner, she eyed Naruto with her keen eyes, trying to figure out what he was. He couldn't be a Sekirei, or even a direct descendant of one. No Sekirei could control more than one element. As a pillar, she knew about her Sekirei better than anyone, even those who had spent years studying them. There were just so many unanswered questions in her mind. What was he, exactly? What was his intention? What was his true motive? How long have you been here on Earth? His question snapped her out of her thought, and instead of answering it right away, she requested annoyingly. Can you talk after you have swallowed your food? Gulp. Alright, how long have you been here? I am not supposed to share anything involving the existence of Sekirei with you. Miya shook her head, and I also don't want to share anything with you. What a killjoy. Naruto commented sarcastically before adding, frankly speaking, you don't trust me, do you? Yes. Miya replied shortly. Especially after she had seen what you were capable of. Fair enough. Naruto chuckled before he decided to change the topic. I heard they had tripled the security around here. Naruto stated, looking around the dark place with amusement in his eyes. His room stood in the middle of it, and was the only source of light within the place. You are correct. Miya nodded before asking, how did you do that anyway? How did you escape? Well, I have been breaking in and out of many prisons, human prisons. Miya interrupted, reminding him not this kind of prison. I don't see anything different. Naruto chuckled. Why are you here, Naruto-san? Miya asked, why did you let yourself be captured? Naruto didn't answer right away. Instead, he grabbed the cup of water and took a long gulp, clearing his throat with the cool liquid before answering Miya's question. I am here because the world itself has already bored me. He answered simply to tell you the truth, I have no interest in your Sekirei, or what BMI is doing here. I am here because I want to be here. He tilted his head back to look at the purple-haired woman. Will you believe me if I say I am here to find friends, those who are not going to look at me differently because I am someone who can bend the elements to my will? He then turned back and continued to enjoy his meal. So you are here to seek companions? Miya asked, her eyes became softer than usual. Part of my reasons I am here, but I guess you can say it like that. Naruto nodded his head. How long have you been aware of those powers of yours? Not the usual what am I kind of question. Yes. Well, to tell you the truth, I cannot remember exactly when. Naruto answered, shrugging his shoulders, but I can assure you that it didn't come out of nowhere. Practicing, studying, training, hard work, you name it. I see, so that's why you are so powerful, Naruto-san. Powerful enough to stand up against a goddess, am I right? Naruto added with a grin, giving her a thumb up. Yes, I guess you are. Miya said before a beautiful smile broke out on her face. Ah, you are smiling. Naruto stood up and pointed his hand at Miya in a dramatic manner, before returning to his seat and turning back to his food. You should smile more often, he said, waving his hand above his head. You look very beautiful when you smile, not that you don't when you are not, by the way. For the third time of the day, he made her blush. The smile softened a little, but it didn't leave her face. I'm back, Miya announced, as she stepped into the common room she shared with her Sekirei, the members of the discipline squad. They had only been given the place to stay only recently, as Miya and her siblings had spent most of their time inside MBI's laboratory, where the researchers would check and keep tabs on their conditions. The rooms, separated by soundproof walls, had been very simple at first, but Miya and her Sekirei had changed them to their likings by adding various objects and redecorating the walls and the ceilings. Miya had a large queen-size bed in the middle of her room, surrounded by a comfortable chair next to a working table, tatami mats on the floor, a decent-sized wardrobe with a bookshelf, and a place for her to put her sword, the Tetsuga no Tsurugi, on the wall above her bed. While Matsu, Kazehana, and Karasuba had set up there normally and modernly, Matsu had filled her room with computers and high-tech devices, which she used to spy on the enemies of Kamakura Island, and worked on technical tasks that not even the most talented of MBI could solve. Like Miya, Matsu, and Kazehana had changed out of their uniforms, which were still being worn by Matsu and Karasuba. The latter had claimed the enemies of Kamakura Island could return anytime, and she had to be ready. Matsu was wearing a form-fitting white shirt and knee-length jeans that both wrapped around her voluptuous frame nicely. Meanwhile, Kazehana, being the kind of woman who had a lot of confidence in her natural sex appeals, and no problem in flaunting them, were wearing an outfit that had taken a lot of blood from the male researchers, and Miya had sternly pointed out to be too lewd to be allowed to share a room with her. It was a very short dress that hugged her well-developed body seductively, and opened widely at the front, showing the inner portions of her large breasts and belly button. Welcome back, Miyu-tan. Matsu greeted with a smile, before turning back to her computer and blurring her fingers on the keyboard. Matsu and Karasuba simply waved their hands at her, before going back to whatever they were doing before Miyu arrived. How was your first night with our goofy idiot? Kazehana asked with a small smirk, using the word Miya had used to call Naruto the previous night. Kazehana Miya spoke the name of the wind Sekirei softly, before pointing her finger accusingly at the black-haired woman. You're dirtying our living room with your addiction for alcohol again. Clean up the mess before I force you to do it, she demanded, looking at the empty cans of alcohol on and around Kazehana. Recently, the wind Sekirei had taken a liking to alcoholic beverages, and could always be seen with one whenever she wasn't training or being examined by the researchers inside their lab. Alright, geez, Kazehana pouted, and stood up from her chair to start cleaning the mess she had made on the floor. Though, she didn't forget to ask for an answer for her early question. You haven't answered my question yet, Miya. While he had his moments of being an annoying joker who couldn't stop making fun of everything around him, while making her way further into the room, Miya started with a blank face, causing Kazehana to giggle in amusement. Naruto-san had proven himself to be quite a gentleman. He allowed me to use his bed too. Hold on a second, you slept with him? Natsu interrupted loudly in surprise, before allowing a perverted grin to spread across her face, much to Miya's annoyance. My, he knows you have it in you, Miya-chan. Kazehana giggled. This had also taken Matsu and Karasuba interests, as they immediately dropped their works and turned their heads to look at her. I can assure you that nothing happened between us. Miya stopped and calmly replied before taking a seat on one of the empty chairs in the room. He slept on the floor and remained there all night. You sure the brat didn't do anything to you? Karasuba asked with a chuckle. Because you know, he is faster than you. She reminded the pillar, who frowned slightly at the memories of Naruto's final attack. He had moved so fast all Miya could see had been a flash of gold. You don't have to worry about that, Karasuba. Miya shook her head, closing her eyes. I didn't sleep. I was there to make sure he didn't try anything funny, not meddle around. If you still want to prove, Natsu can gain access to the security cameras inside his room and show you everything that happened last night. Geez, there's no need for that. Kazehana waved her hand around. I believe you, Miya. The others nodded their heads in agreement with the wind Sekirei, earning a nod of gratitude from the purple-haired queen of Sekirei. Takami has already moved him to another room earlier on the 4th floor this morning, one with a higher security system, and a place for us to stay during nighttime, Miya informed them. Well, it's good to know then. Kazehana nodded her head before throwing her garbage into a trash bin. Is there anything else we need to know about? Miya nodded her head before starting to tell them about the first normal conversation between her and the self-proclaimed god, repeating every single word he had told her about his intentions and his powers to her Sekirei. In addition, Miya didn't tell them about his comment on her beauty and her smile, believing it wasn't necessary and important for them to know about. To say the Sekirei were surprised was an understatement. After a moment, the second Sekirei decided to break the silence by asking the Sekirei pillar calmly, do you believe what he said, Miya-tan? I don't think he was lying. Miya then shook her head. But it doesn't mean I have come to trust him. Do you remember that he called Karasuba little bird during their battle? Everyone nodded their heads. So unless it was because of the Sekirei crest on her uniform, it had to be because he had already known about us before coming to this island. She said seriously. Until we have found out his real motives, we should not let our guard down around him. That's not my intention. Karasuba smirked, but not because of Miya's words. She had her own plans with the self-proclaimed god, after all. You know, since it's going to be my shift next, how about I use this sake to make him drunk and spill everything to us? Kazehana said, smiling mischievously while holding a green bottle to her chest. I heard somewhere that every word that comes out of your mouth while you are drunk is the truth. I don't think so. Miya nodded her head, causing Kazehana's smile to widen. We probably cannot force the truth out of him with brute force anyway. Pausing for a second, she then continued. However, you must be very careful, Kazehana. He's someone who has a lot of weird tricks up his sleeves. They might have been used to make fun of the situations, but no one can deny the fact that they are extremely effective, useful, and also dangerous. Don't worry, Miya. Kazehana smiled. While she might not be as smart as Matsu, she already had a plan in her head, and knew exactly what she would have to do to make it work. Line break, where did you even get that gaming device from? Staring at Naruto who was standing in the middle of his room playing Fruit Ninja using a small toy-like sword, Takami couldn't stop herself from asking with a dumbfounded expression on her face. You know what, doesn't answer that. I don't want to know. She shook her head, and said quickly when the blonde paused the game, and turned around to look at her. He had probably broken out again, and gone to who knows where to buy that game. So much for a room with a higher security system. You catch on quick, don't you? Naruto grinned before taking a step back cautiously when Takami removed a 45 ACP semi-automatic handgun from her lab coat and put it heavily on the table. Oi, what is that for? Aren't you a scientist? He asked, pointing his finger at the weapon. They said a scientist cannot carry a gun around. Takami asked with an evil grin. Plus, you don't have to worry about that. It's for emergency situations, and I have no intention of using it outside emergency situations, unless you suddenly decide to give me one, messing around while I am working. Naruto nodded his head sagely in agreement. Now, why don't we get back to business? She took out a pen and clipboard. I'm here to give you a checkup. We need to make sure that you are in perfect health. There's no need for that. Naruto raised his hand and shook his head. I am always in perfect condition, even on my worst days. Saying that he went back to play his game, lazily slashing his sword around, but for some reason managed to get all the fruits at the same time. Takami couldn't help but look at the young man because his last statement lacked the usual playfulness he had always used to talk with the people around him. It felt like those words carried some weight in them. I see, Takami said finally, and wrote that down, finding herself unable to say anything to him. Takami also couldn't believe how strange it was for her to see him speaking and acting like that. Now, what do we have here? Then suddenly, Naruto dropped his hand and stopped playing without pausing the game, looking at the woman who had just appeared in the room with a green bottle in her hand. Lady, you truly know how to capture this man's heart. You look absolutely gorgeous in that dress. He gave her a thumb up and a 1,000-watt grin, much to her amusement. I am flattered. Kazehana giggled and pushed her chest out to show off her impressive feminine charm, blushing slightly at his compliment. So I assume that it's your shift, Kazehana. Giving a disappointing sigh and placing a hand on her hip, Takami asked, looking at the wind Sekirei and ignoring the way Naruto was checking her voluptuous body. You are correct. Kazehana nodded her head. I will be watching over him from now to 7 tonight. After that, Karasuba will take over, and tomorrow will be Matsu. Naruto turned his thumb down and booed wholeheartedly. What about that girl with glasses, Matsu? Well, Miya decided to leave her out of this, since she's not a fighting type Sekirei, Kazehana answered with a smile. And here I am looking forward to spending my time with her. She's a computer geek, right? Naruto asked interestingly, and Kazehana nodded her head in confirmation. Naruto then looked at the bottle Kazehana was holding, and curiously questioned, is that a bottle of sake you are holding? And I am hoping to share it with you. The black-haired Sekirei nodded her head while running her hand through her hair. That is if you're man enough for it. Now that's a challenge I'll take on anytime. You're on. Naruto grinned, before looking at Takami. You want to join us? Leave me out of this. Takami shook her head, and turned around to leave the room after she had put her gun back in her pocket. Because unlike you, I have work to do, and being drunk is not going to help it. She then turned around to look at Kazehana. Make sure to keep your eye on him, Kazehana. I know you love your drink, but we need you to make sure he doesn't go anywhere outside of this room without no one noticing anything about it. I will not worry. Kazehana waved her hand with a smile. Man, and I thought Miya was the only one who had 20 of something or something up her ass. Naruto teased, causing Takami to glare at him evilly before leaving the room with another sigh. Shaking his head, Naruto turned off the TV and took out 2 glasses, which he placed them on the table. Not exactly what I imagined for a drinking contest with a busty woman, but I guess this will do fine, Naruto said, as he pulled a chair out, smiling gentlemanly. Please, have a seat. Miya's right, you are quite a gentleman. Naruto gave her a surprised look when he sat down next to her. She did. Kazehana nodded, as she removed the bottle's stop plate, remembering Naruto's statement about Miya earlier. I hope you don't think too bad about her. She might be a little hard sometimes, but it's only because she is worried for our safety, which is only natural because you are stronger than her, and yet your motives are still unclear to us. She explained, choosing her words very carefully so she wouldn't accidentally reveal anything to him, like Miya and her adjuster had told her to. I thought I had already told her last night, Naruto asked, as he accepted a full glass of wine from Kazehana. You're here looking for friends, Kazehana giggled. Well, I can probably work with that, but unfortunately, Miya doesn't. She thought you were still hiding something. And you trust her? Naruto asked, as he lightly touched his glass against Kazehana for the wind. For the wind. The wind Sekirei giggled before putting the glass to her lips and drinking it all in a single gulp. And yes, I trust her. She is the leader and the wisest among us, after all. She nodded her head, exhaling longingly. Fair enough. Chuckling, Naruto casually put his empty glass down, making Kazehana widen her eyes slightly in amazement. If I were her, I wouldn't trust someone that easily. Naruto leant back before turning his head to look at the third Sekirei. What about you? What do you think about me? He asked, smiling curiously. Well, I thought your personality was a little out of balance. Kazehana answered with a smile, but I guess that's part of your charm. So you think I am charming? Naruto asked, smirking slyly. You are? Kazehana giggled, blushing slightly. She then put her elbow on the table and leaned her cheek against the back of her hand. Well, let's hope that you are a good man with no evil intention, because I don't want to team up with the rest of the squad to take you down and kick you out of here in a body bag. You make things around here interesting. You're welcome. Naruto waved his hand, smirking slightly. Anyway, let me get this straight. You think you guys have a chance against me, a god, together? We could try. Kazehana shrugged. Ha! Good luck with that. Naruto chuckled as he gulped down another cupful of sake. You seem like you are holding yourself pretty well. Kazehana commented as she looked at him. How long have you been drinking? For humans, the legal age for drinking is 18, right? Yes, but haven't I already told you? Naruto removed the glass from his face and said with a smirk, I am not human, I am a fucking god. Kazehana couldn't stop herself from giggling again before adding, well, keep fighting, acting, behaving, and smiling like that. I might actually believe that you are one. Believe it? Naruto's smirk widened even further as he suddenly stood up and spread his arms dramatically before it's too late. The more you wait, the more you are going to get overwhelmed by my godliness. Naruto then looked down and smiled when he saw Kazehana trying to hold her laughter in. Enough about me. The self-proclaimed god sat down and smiled at the black-haired woman. Why don't you tell me something about yourself? Well, of course, you can leave the Sekirei part out. He waved his hand with a wink. You don't have to talk about that if you don't want to, I respect people's privacy. Yet you assumed Miya had a thing for purple when she saw her panty. It was an accident. Naruto laughed awkwardly, for Kazehana at least, it hit me in the eyes, you know. Alright then. Kazehana nodded her head, sighing with a smile. So where should I start? I don't know about hobbies, likes, dislikes, dreams. Naruto suggested, smiling fondly at the memories that popped up in his mind. Why don't you start first? Kazehana wasted no time, and immediately used that as an opportunity to learn more about the mysterious blonde. Maybe with that I will know what I have to do. Alright then, my name is Naruto, but you already know that. Naruto began. What I like is ramen. What I like even more is when someone pays for them. My hobby is eating ramen. What I dislike is waiting for the ramen to cook, and my dream is opening the biggest ramen restaurant in the world. Seriously, there's something not right about you, and ramen, isn't there? Kazehana looked like she couldn't decide whether or not to laugh or something else. It's the food worthy to be eaten by God. Naruto gave her a thumbs up. Speaking of which, maybe I should invite the goddess for a ramen dinner the next time she takes charge. He stated thoughtfully. Don't do that. Takami told me ramen was unhealthy, and Miyu really hates unhealthy foods. Not if you know how to make it right and healthy. Naruto grinned. Anyway, that's enough about me. Your turn. Well, my name is Kazehana, and I am a Sekirei, number 03. Kazehana started with a smile. What I like is love stories, and anything that is romantic. She cooed excitedly, holding her cheeks with both hands, while swinging her body side to side. My hobby is drinking, as you can see. I don't exactly dislike anything, but my dream is finding the destined love of my life, who I will love with all my heart, and love me back just as much. Wow, and you said there was something not right about me, and ramen. Aside from the drinking part, there's something definitely not okay with you, and love, you know what? Naruto chuckled before gently patting Kazehana on the shoulder, causing the black-haired woman to look at him in curiosity. Well, I wish you the best of luck. You have a good dream, you've got to grab it, and never let go. I have no intention of doing otherwise. Kazehana smiled fondly. To find their Ashikabi, to find the true and destined love of their life, was the dream of every Sekirei, even Miya, but could not be winged because she wasn't a Sekirei. The queen of Sekirei might not show it, but Kazehana knew that she wished to be given wings, and to feel the bond of love like those she had sworn her life to protect with her blade. Alright, let's give it a toast, shall we? Naruto asked, as he grabbed a bottle, and filled the glasses full for your dream, and for the bastard who is lucky enough to catch your eyes. Don't forget that dream restaurant of yours. Kazehana smiled, as she held up her glass. Cheer. Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic. Link is in the description. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.